All right, baby, here we go. Bernie Sanders is scaring some lobbyists. This is I almost cursed, but you got those new YouTube rules. Had to try to reel it in just a little bit. Apparently, they're demonetizing like crazy now for curses, so I'm kind of screwed. Anyway, this is in Politico. Not business as usual. Health lobbyists brace for Bernie Sanders. So he's got a new position. Let me share this with you guys. Healthcare lobbyists representing insurers, drug makers, and a range of powerful industry interests are steeling themselves for a Senate chair immune to their usual charms, Bernie Sanders. The Vermont Independent is set to take over the Senate's Health, Education, Labor, and Pensions Committee next month. All right, so let me just say this. This is like the perfect place for Bernie. Well, that's not true. The perfect place for Bernie is President of the United States. But if you're going to say not that, okay, this is perfect for Bernie. Leading the panel gives the Medicare for All proponent oversight authority over some of his policy priorities. Drug pricing, workers' rights, and income inequality, and student and medical debt. To which I say, hell yes. Hell yes. This is exactly what we want. But Sanders' well-chronicled antagonism toward lobbyists has some concerned they'll be unable to blunt criticism of their clients' profits or corporate executive salaries. Well, you don't say. Turns out the Democratic Socialist is going to say, seems like the executives are making too much as the workers are getting absolutely destroyed. Guys, there was a time when CEOs made like 10 to 1 compared to their average worker. Now it's like 350 to 1. Yeah, Bernie's going to highlight that. Bernie's going to do what he can to fight back against that. And these guys are terrified because they know, oh shit, we can't control them. I just cursed. Video demonetized. Support the show on Patreon, guys, please, for the love of God. They know, because with the other people who have no moral convictions, right? They have no real ideology or philosophy. It's easy for these drug company lobbyists or health insurance lobbyists to charm these guys and to give them perks, to give them campaign contributions, to promise them, hey, when you get out of here, maybe we got a job waiting for you. That's $1 million a year. And then they cave. And then they give them what they want. And with Bernie, Bernie's never going to do that. So they are shitting bricks. Okay, now I'm double demonetized. Please support this show on Patreon. And please subscribe. Anyway, they are anxious Sanders might seek to revive policies like importing drugs from Canada and other nations, an idea loathed by drug makers. Gee, I wonder why. Could it be because they're price gouging Americans? Lobbyists also worry they'll struggle to get traction on any push to make change to a drug discount program involving pharmaceutical companies and hospitals, or revisit association health plans after a Trump-era rule around them was voided. Quote, this will not be business as usual for K Street. It will be harder for companies to get in and make a case. By the way, I love the framing of this article as if like, well, the company lobbyists should be at the table. No, they shouldn't. There should be an antagonistic relationship between these companies and the politicians. Why? Because the politicians are representatives, they should be, of the American people. And the American people want lower drug prices. The American people don't want to get price gouged by their health insurance company. So, yeah, in a system that actually makes sense that is working, you would have somebody who's a lion for the people, who's in control here, who tells the lobbyists to go kick rocks. There's a very famous story, this is going back years now, maybe a decade ago or so, where lobbyists have a buddy-buddy relationship with almost everybody in Washington, almost all the representatives, almost all the senators. There were two offices that they always skipped over. Ron Paul, the hardcore libertarian, and Bernie Sanders, the Democratic Socialist. Why? Because these guys, agree or disagree with them, they're ideologues. They're true believers. And so they have a philosophy, they're going to stick to it. And they can't be bought. They can't be bought. And that's exactly what we need. Now, obviously, Ron Paul, I disagree with him massively on half the issues, or like 60% of the issues. But at least he's principled. Bernie, I actually agree with him, and he's principled. Win-win. The culture in the office is one where lobbyists are mistrusted, and they're more likely to discount what they hear directly from companies. Politico spoke to more than a dozen lobbyists. Oh my God, I love this. They did a sob story with lobbyists and lawyers about having Sanders at the helm of the Help Committee, some of whom were granted anonymity to talk about the senator's dynamic with K Street. Multiple lobbyists representing health insurers, pharmaceutical companies, providers, and health systems told Politico they're going to have to bank shot their advocacy to get their message across, lobbying other lawmakers on the committee and getting into the ears of progressive policymakers and left-leaning organizations. So you see what they're trying to do? They're going to have to try to undermine Bernie. They're going to have to try to, okay, let's bribe other lawmakers. Let's try to get into the ear of some of the staffers who are progressive policymakers. Let's try to infiltrate some of the left-wing policy organizations and tell them, hey, are you really sure about that provision? There are downsides if you lower prescription drug prices and import it from Canada. Let me tell you some of those. What happens if people get poisoned from the drugs that come from Canada? There's a full court press of rank propaganda and lies to try to protect their profits. Where was I? Quote, there are ways to get things passively on his radar if you know him well enough, if you know who he listens to or what he reads, Crowell said. Sanders' office declined to respond to questions from Politico, including those about his relationship with lobbyists. Lobbyists said another strategy could be working to insert favorable provisions into larger bills, lean on the panel's House counterpart, the Energy and Commerce Committee, or go to Senator Patty Murray, a Democrat of Washington, who is stepping down as Help Committee chair to head the Senate Appropriations Committee. So the other thing they're going to try to do. We're going to have to try other tactics. Let's into must-pass bills. Let's get some provisions that we want. Let's go to other committees that can kind of counteract what Bernie's committee is going to do. Man, I hope he's ready. See, this is the biggest problem with being somebody like Bernie Sanders in Washington, D.C. When you're principled, when you're actually fighting for the people and big money runs the place, they have 1,000,001 tricks up their sleeve to destroy any good that you're trying to do. And so he better knuckle up. He better make the associations he needs to in order to work this out, because unfortunately, with only one of him and so many of them, it's just difficult to win that battle, even if you try your best and even if your intentions are the purest. Quote, it's not status quo. We're going to have to be creative with patient groups to get him to listen, said a lobbyist with health system, health insurance, and pharmaceutical clients granted anonymity to speak freely. If I'm going to be completely honest, we're still trying to figure out what we're going to do. Well, that's good. So they don't really have any answer that they're super sold on. Like, if we do this, it'll work. They know, like, this guy's a problem. He's going to be a thorn in our side. Is that the saying? Thorn in our side? That's a weird saying. Sanders has talked about working to boost access to care, lower drug costs, expand the healthcare workforce, and raise wages, and possibly reach across the aisle. Sanders is also expected to push the jurisdictional bounds of the committee, potentially talking on issues such as health impacts of climate change. K Street will likely watch how often Sanders collaborates with the committee's incoming ranking members, Senator Bill Cassidy, he's a Republican of Louisiana, as the two have a history of working across the aisle, although some lobbyists have floated policies about drug pricing and surprise billing as a possibility for them to find agreement. It's not entirely clear if they'll end up on the same page. See, that's important, man. And this is what Bernie's so good at, too. Bernie is good at finding just a handful of people on the right who might agree with him on one issue, and then they work on that. He did it with Ron Paul all the time back in the day. He had done it with Mike Lee of Utah. He'd done it with even Josh Hawley on some economic stuff. And that's wonderful. That's the kind of bipartisanship I like. The kind I dislike is when they all get together to do the Iraq War or do torture or whatever the fuck. So let's hope that this guy, Bill Cassidy, surprise billing, maybe he will be on board for cracking down on that. Lowering drug prices, maybe if Pharma didn't bribe him enough, maybe he'll be on board with that. But it's tough. But look, they're scared, and that makes me happy. So Bernie is going to be a lion on this committee. And man, I really hope he has some hearings where he calls in the executives and just takes them to task. The world needs to see that. We need to get these smug pricks put in line, because they've been robbing people in this country for way too long. Ever since Adpocalypse, when YouTube defunded all independent news and politics overnight, we haven't trusted them. We know they can pull the rug out from underneath us at any time. If you enjoy this content, please consider tipping $1 or $2 per month on the Secular Talk Patreon. Link in the video description box below. Thanks for your support.